Welcome to Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski. In this show, we explore how truth comes to life through real stories and real people. Today, I'm joined by Deb Gibson. She's a friend of my family's for 10 years now or so. We've not only friends of the family, but also our churches have been working together for quite a few years now as well. We met each other through ministry. And yeah, I love her entire family. She loves my family. And yeah, we've become pretty tight knit, the Gibsons and the Swakowski clans. So yeah, I'm excited for you to hear her story. She has a great story of, what happened in her life before meeting me and my friends and family, but quite the journey that happened when and around the time that she did meet me and the other leaders that I've been ministering with for years now. So I'm looking forward for you to hear it. Let's dive in. Welcome, Deb. Thank you for being on the show. How you doing?
I'm great, and I'm really excited to be on the show. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, I've known you for quite a few years now. I'm
Mhm.
glad to have you on the show. I know your story's great. You've been in ministry for years. Our churches have worked together.
Mhm.
A leader in the church in your own right.
Yes.
Also, you
Yep.
were a pastor's wife for many years and
Yep.
now have, a pastor's mom and yeah,
It keeps
there's just,
going on.
yeah, there's a lot going on in ministry and in the church, but I know of course, as everybody does, there's a story before all of that. There's a story before Joel entered your life that I'd
Right?
love to hear and that I know is the parts I've heard already are intriguing and I think the audience would maybe learn a lot and for sure be interested to hear. So, Deb, would you share your story with the Unlocked community?
Yeah, I would love to. So, I feel like in order for you in the Unlock community to understand who I am today, I need to take you back about 60 some years. I am 67 years old, born in the Midwest to a family that was upper class. I have an older brother who was very smart and succeeded at all kinds of things. My mom stayed home. I had everything a girl could have, but yet I was filled with fear, low confidence, low self esteem. I had a weight problem. I was teased. I was super naive. I was still playing with Barbie dolls in junior high, which caused a lot of teasing. And around the age of 10, I was able to identify where my deep seated fear came in. And it carried with me almost up until maybe with 10 years ago. Um,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
At
So
10? At
at
10, you
10,
had this like,
revelation after listening to Yvonne's sermon the other day.
oh, so you have a revelation today, like now, about yourself when you were
Yeah,
10?
yeah,
What was it? Like, what was this realization?
yeah. So think about the early 1970s. I was probably about 9 years old. And it was during the time where shag carpet was new. And I was laying down on this super shagged, wonderful carpet like this on on the floor watching TV. And I turned the channel, and on the channel was somebody walking in a field. And they stopped and they listened, and they could hear somebody screaming under the earth. So they began to immediately dig the earth up. And at one point, the person who was buried reached their hand up. It was a bloody hand, and reached up for help, and I screamed so hard, and I ran away, and my mom said, "Deb, it's not reality. It's not reality." But I said, "But what if it is?" And so
Oh,
that was like the start of like fears of being home alone. I would imagine people knocking on the door or rapping on the window or peering in. If I had to go down into the basement, I was so afraid I would like run like a maniac down the stairs, get what I needed to, and come back up. And if I was home alone, I would jimmy a chair underneath the handle of all the doors so nobody could get in. And that carried with me into my marriage, into having kids. I don't think I ever instilled fears in my kids that way, but I would have to get up numerous times if I was home without Dan and check the doors throughout the night. And I would put chairs underneath locks, the handles, up until, like, 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah,
Holy
so lots
smokes.
and lots of fears.
So,
Very
and
realistic.
then what we would say, I guess, what typically would be seen as a secure family life with,
Yeah, yeah,
you know, like you said, upper class and had
mhm.
everything you needed. Like typically people would equate that with being secure and safe.
Yeah,
And
yeah. It was a secure, safe environment. We went on great vacations. I got cars, bought for me. I had a horse. I had all kinds of stuff. But yet I inherited low self-esteem and low confidence, and it played a big factor in almost my entire life.
oh, wow. All right. So that was that, like, so now you're making sense of your early life,
Yeah,
especially your childhood. I
yeah.
mean, what was it like growing up then into your teens and after high school? What'd you make of
So,
yourself?
I had a tough time fitting in, and my mom would tell me, "Well, just emulate this person because they're really a good person." So I would take that seriously, and I would like try to do exactly what they were doing. Hand gestures. I'd even go buy clothes to match them. I'd get the items they liked. I'd pretend to like what they liked just so that I could fit in. And that honestly carried through a lot of my marriage, chasing a plan for happiness of somebody who I was not created to be and didn't know who I was created to be until the last 10 years.
All right. So then I mean, that sounds like kind of tumultuous upbringing then, as great as what people might think that type of home life would be like. So what'd you do? Like, I know, what was the journey from this girl who was insecure to where you are today? There's a lot of stuff that happened
Yeah.
between then
Yep.
and you keep saying about 10 years ago. So
Yeah. There's a
there's a lot
lot.
of a story there, isn't there?
Yeah. So I went off to nursing school, became a nurse, and my senior year of nursing school, I met my husband. I had just gotten out of a four-year relationship, wasn't looking for anybody, saw him out one night. He took me out on a date the next week and told me, we're going to get married. And I said, "You are flipping nuts.
Yeah, he said
I'm
that
not
on
going to
their
marry you."
first date.
Yeah. Yeah, so, fast forward a full 2 weeks, and we were shopping for engagement rings, and we got married, we met in January, and we were married that following November, and, we entered the marriage probably not ready to be married, and we really didn't know each other, and thank God it has turned out we're celebrating 44 years next week.
Yeah,
So,
congratulations on that. But so
thanks.
what was it? So from like you're flipping nuts to
Yeah,
2 weeks later, you're looking at wedding dresses
yeah,
and stuff.
so it all had to
What
do
was
with
it about Dan? What was it about Dan that like hooked you though?
honestly, initially, it was I didn't think anybody would ask me
Okay.
beyond this last relationship, so I said yes because of my low
Yeah.
confidence and low self-esteem, but I also liked his smile. He had hair back then, and he just was very, um he was a gentleman and really deeply loved me from the beginning,
Yeah.
and, I gave him a run for his money throughout our marriage. I was, like, wore the pants in the family and made decisions without him, and he persevered and stayed on. And, we have 2 boys, and we, raised them as best we could. I wish that I'd had the information back then that I have now, because I think that they would have a lot less damage.
Yeah.
Um, so they saw a mom ruling the roost and a dad following my orders.
So what was that kind of gives us a glimpse into what what those like 20 years were like, the first 20 or so. But
Mhm.
what was it like? I mean, what was you met Dan, you got married pretty quick. What was married life with him? Were you guys part of the church yet in your in the
No,
early days?
no. So, let me just back up to age 16. My dad worked for Kimberly Clark, and we got transferred from Appleton down to South Carolina, and I went to an almost all, Black school. I was a minority, and that was back in 1974, and during my first day there, I met some other girls who had been part of Young Life, and they invited me into their circle, and that's where I first met who found out who Jesus was, and I
Okay.
accepted Jesus back then, and then shortly thereafter, my dad got transferred back to Appleton, and when you don't have anybody to disciple you, you just kinda fall off the, you know, spiritual wagon, and we were doing our own plan for happiness. So, we moved out to Pickett, which is a farming community near Oshkosh, and I had a patient who was a hospice patient of mine, and her husband said to me, "I feel like God told me this is a beginning for you moving out to Pickett," and he got us set up with a mainline denomination, and that pastor happened to be born again, and so I got very involved. Dan wanted nothing to do with it, and I just kept going to church, praying that he would show up. A lot of people thought I was either divorced or widowed, but I took the kids every Sunday and would volunteer. And sometime along in there, my husband finally surrendered his life, which will be a story that he can share with you.
Yeah,
And
he's on the show next,
yeah.
Deb.
So
Yeah.
shortly after that, this main denomination decided that they wanted to say that God was Sophia and it was okay to ordain gay and lesbian pastors, and we just weren't going to go along with it. So we and a bunch of other people left that denomination and started our own church in the Pickett area called Countryside Christian Church. And my husband was the elder along with another man. And we were there, oh gosh, over 10 years, I think. And then he got a calling to help out at what is Winneconne Christian Fellowship now, but it was called First United Baptist Church. And he was there for maybe a year or two part time and working a full time secular job. And it came time that we felt he should go full time, and the church wanted him full time. And he started to get cold feet. This was like in December, and he started to get cold feet. And I really felt like this was what God wanted him to do. So I got together another couple, and we were praying that doors would close for him. And shortly thereafter, before the first of the year, he got a call that he needed to come in. It was the weekend, and he came in, and the whole plant closed. I didn't pray that the whole plant would close. I prayed that the doors would close for him. So he lost his job. He lost a lot of retirement funds. But as soon as he realized he didn't have a job, he was then forced to go full time into ministry. And what's interesting about this is the company reopened shortly after he left. So it was like this was all God, for
Yeah.
sure, for
Oh, that's
sure.
incredible. So what was that? So about 10 years into him being born again was when all of a sudden like this calling happened.
I think so. I might
What
be
was that
wrong
like?
on
Like
that.
what was it like for you when Dan comes along? Like now you're going to church together. What was that journey like? And then
Um,
leading up to it, well, I have more questions, but just like what was
yeah,
that like when all of a sudden seems like
he
your prayers are being answered? Dan's coming to church, right?
Yeah, yeah. So when he went golfing with a pastor in Green Lake, and some on one of those greens, the pastor said to him, "How what's it going to take to get you to come to Christ?" Well, he ended up coming to Christ, and that afternoon he drove home and he was bawling like a baby at the counter. Like, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of this. And I was such a new believer. I'm like, yes, you're very worthy of all this. And so anyway, it was fun. It was really exciting because now we could go to church as a family of 4, and we were all super involved in church, doing
And
whatever
how
they
old were
wanted.
the boys at this time?
They were probably grade school.
Okay, so like 8-ish around
Yeah,
that
yeah, they're almost 4 years
young.
apart, so yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
yeah,
So Dan's coming to church. He has and we'll get into that with Dan, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
must have
stay
been
tuned 'cause that's an
encouraging to have
amazing
your
story.
husband there with you. And how
Yeah,
did
it was
that
fun.
change? Did that change your marriage at all? Like right off the bat? What happened with
Um,
your
yeah,
relationship?
I think it did. I think our relationship grew because when you're going to church on your own and you still want your husband to go, there can be a wedge there. And I would come home and say, "Well, I think you should come next Sunday. You know, the boys are doing this concert." And he would show up, but he wasn't interested. Has a lot of damage from his upbringing in a Catholic church, and he just wanted nothing to do with church. So for him to finally come and just be sold 100% sold and into it, he just it was really cool to minister together, and I could feel our marriage getting stronger because that's what happens when you share God between the 2 of you.
Yeah, I mean, I remember thinking that being counterintuitive. I remember thinking, man, if I really love a woman, how could I love anyone else more? But when you
Yeah.
really understand what God's about, it's like that's the only way to really love somebody long term and the best way possible. So
Yes. Yeah.
that that's great to hear. And so where we're at then is you're just going to church. Like I imagine like the more you get involved, you guys just typical members of the church, you guys starting to serve more. Like how did
Mhm.
you and Dan be kind of like looked upon as these leaders? Because although Dan gets a calling into the ministry 10 years or so after he starts coming to church with you, as a married man getting called into ministry is really his whole family, including his wife, being called
Yeah.
into ministry.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
were
when
you guys
we
just getting more involved? What was that like to then like I'd love to hear like what's the journey of you guys becoming this family that's looked up to and seen as leaders to the now you're being given this really big calling, this really big
Right.
opportunity.
Yeah. I think honestly, it all started when we left the main denomination and started what is called Countryside Christian Church, and it's still in existence today. Just there were like probably 15 of us. And Dan was the head of it. And he ended up being like this awesome elder serving in every capacity. I would serve alongside him. We'd host Bible studies. We'd go visit people. The kids were involved. They enjoyed it. At one time, I had been a hospice nurse, and I would take my kids with me to visitations, and they got very comfortable around people that were dead and laying in a
Yeah,
coffin. And,
yeah.
we just did all this stuff together. It came at a cost at times. It was like, every Saturday night, we'd have to go and set up this church because we met in a firehouse, and, oh my god, the arguments we would have because it was
Yeah.
stressful, and you'd go home and you'd work it out, and the next morning you'd be like, "Hey, everybody," like, "We're really good." So,
As you're looking around the building where you just were, you know,
yeah,
cussing out your husband the night
I know,
before,
I know,
setting up
right?
chairs and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was
yeah, I've been there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think
So
it
then
gave the
yeah.
boys, a good foundation for church because um, they've pretty much have been in church most of their lives then with us.
I know that was me. I mean, I grew up with a pastor. That's one of the ways me and Jake, your son,
Mhm.
who's senior pastor of Winneconne Christian Fellowship now, have connected. We're both pastors' kids.
Yeah.
We both served as associate pastors under our dads.
Yeah.
And I also think, similarly when things went bad or when either or both of us hit our bottom, like enough's enough, because of that upbringing, we didn't really have to guess which way to turn, right? It was like I remember, regardless of what I know now and how much more I understand about the truth of God and the doctrine and who he is, who Jesus is, who the Holy Spirit is, what my part is in that. There was something comforting of when I hit that breaking point, being really grateful to my parents on even just having that, like, Jesus is the answer.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't give you the full picture, but
Right.
it was like a direction to go towards.
Mhm.
So, and
Yeah,
I can say that definitely for Jake and Ben too, is like they have that foundation. So
there's
they
peace
know
in
where to
that
turn.
and knowing that there's Jesus.
Yeah.
If I choose to walk away, he's there.
Hmm.
It's me that chooses to walk away, not
Yeah.
Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's great. So then what was it like being so Dan loses his job. You imagine I'm picturing him being given a box to walk out with like a little plant and
Pretty
paperwork and
much.
stuff. Security is escorting him off the
Yeah.
premises.
Yeah. I was
Now
thrilled.
he's now it's like, well, does it need to be more clear than that? It's
I
like he's
know.
gonna be
I
full
was
time.
like
So
I was so excited. I think that
yeah,
that is the first time in my life that a prayer was truly answered in a way bigger way, and then I felt guilty because a lot of our friends had lost their job, and I'm like, "Oh god, that's not what I meant."
yeah, yeah.
So
Maybe you know what? I might after this episode, I might have to ask you to pray for me for a few things because clearly God answers your prayers, right?
yeah, okay, I'm on it.
Like, "Hey, everybody, Deb, prayer
Yeah,
warrior." Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So what was it like then being a pastor's wife? I know imagine this is in what? Is this in the 90s now?
Um, it could be more in the
Early 2000s?
yeah, it was yeah, because I remember, still being at Countryside with Y2K, and that was 2000. So it was shortly after that. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but, initially for me, leaving Countryside was super difficult because that was my church family, and I was tight with people, and I was kind of scared, even though I knew that this was the way to go. And when we first went to First Baptist Church, I was homesick. And I would get up on Sundays and I'd say, well, I'm going to Countryside. And he'd say, no, you're not. You're going with me to Winneconne to the church God called our family to.
Yeah.
And, there was a lady at the church at the time who loved watching us serve as a family, and one of the ways she saw us serving is we had to clean out this office full of junk so that Dan could have an office, and the boys even helped. And I don't remember, um I feel like my daughter-in-law was there at the time, although she wasn't my daughter-in-law at age 14, but or however old they were when they met, helping clean, and so she got
Yeah.
involved with the church. And, I started to really fall in love with the church. It was an old, old building. It had baby poop brown carpet, or green carpet and walls. It was just ugly.
Yeah.
But the people were so sweet, and they were so appreciative, and some of those people are still with us to this day.
The
20
countryside people?
no,
Oh,
yeah. Well, one person, Betty and her husband moved from Countryside with us because they wanted to stay with us and support us. But some of the people that, were at the First Baptist Church when we got there
First
are
Baptist.
still with us today at First Baptist, we left that conference and we voted to become independent. We were called Winneconne Christian Fellowship.
So that was the name change came with
Yeah.
just feeling called to leave the denomination
Mhm.
and just kinda govern yourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's a cool story that I'll let Dan share on that
okay.
one. Yeah.
So what was it like then? I imagine that felt I mean, maybe uncomfortable to kind of be out from under this 'cause I know there clearly if you're leaving a denomination, partly it might be because there's some differences in beliefs, but
Mhm.
also there is a protection under that authority too that can be, it's kind of like leaving home for the first time, right? Now it's
Yeah.
like, if you know what hits the fan,
Yeah.
you don't have like dad up at the denomination office to call.
Right.
So what was that like becoming imagine there's a lot of good emotion there, but maybe some fears. What was it like
Um
becoming Winneconne Christian Fellowship?
I honestly didn't have any fears. I felt like Dan protected me from a lot of that administrative stuff. He was just excited that we got the building at a really cheap price and were able to pay it off and we could be our own people. And we had a pastor from the Beloit area, Dr. Larry Corral and his wife, who were very instrumental in helping us get bylaws and whatever all of that is up and running and being what is that, a C something church, C whatever, not an,
The
an
501c3, yeah.
501(c)(3).
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I never felt, fearful or upset. I just stayed under my husband's, like I think I synced up to his thought process. He was excited about it.
Yeah, that's great, and it sounds like although he did lead the church in leaving the denomination, it sounds like he still did have Dr. Larry, as I know him too.
Yep.
He did have counsel, he did have people ahead of him
Mhm.
who were
Yeah,
mentoring him and kinda
right.
showing him the way, so that was a wise move on his part to make sure, you're not just, calling the shots without having somebody helping you along the way too.
Yeah.
Be,
Yeah,
dangerous,
yeah.
position sometimes. So, yeah, so you guys are now Dan, your husband, is the senior pastor of Winneconne Christian Fellowship.
Mhm.
What's life like now? You got your own the building you guys still have, which is beautiful.
Well, actually, we moved into that building in 2012. So we
All
were in a
right.
different
Oh,
building, in an old building that the walls were falling down, and they had
yeah.
to, yeah, put some kinda something in the ceiling to keep the walls from falling down. Yeah, yeah. So, it was fun being a pastor's wife. I enjoyed the role. People loved us really well. I didn't have any of the pettiness that a lot of pastors' wives go through, like, you know, the stress of that. I just enjoyed it, but I also was my own person, and I had a full-time job, and I remember when he first was interviewed to be the pastor, there was this committee of people, and they looked at me and they said, "So, Deb, what do you do for the church?" And I said, "Absolutely nothing. I can't sing, I can't play piano, I don't teach children. If you're looking for a pastor's wife to fill all those roles, it's not me because I work full-time. I'll be here when I can." So I set that precedence right there, like, I don't do any of that, and they still wanted us. So and they loved us really, really well.
I guess that honesty kind of set a bar though of like, not that you weren't going to serve, and I'm sure you did,
I did, yeah.
but it's, this is a job Dan's getting, and anything you do is going to just be all bonus then.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
imagine being honest like that probably set you up to succeed, and to be able to serve in a way where you're not just in bondage to serving because you're the
right,
pastor's wife.
right.
That can
Yeah.
get exhausting. I
Oh,
know
yeah.
my mom was in that role, and I've seen other people in that role, you know, and honestly, unfortunately, back in my mom's day, that role, there was a lot of expectation put on that role, and there was not a lot of gratitude. A lot of it
Right.
was expected.
Yeah. Your mom and I have had some really fun talks about expectations and just the things that she was expected to do. It's like, that never happened for me. So we get a
Yeah,
good
and I
laugh
think that
out of
might
it.
have been a different day and age too, right? Is that
Yeah.
because
Yep.
and I had her on the show too, and we talked about, back in the '70s when she was a pastor's wife, a lot of the role, all those things they were asking kind of about you were things that were expected on a lot of the wives.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the early 2000s, church changed quite a bit in those 30 years, didn't it? Did you see, I mean, you started going to church in the '70s-ish?
Um,
Was that in South Carolina?
I did go to church in South Carolina. I don't remember a lot about my church life. I feel like when I was at church, I wanted to be in the nursery with the babies, and that's where I would wind up. And sometimes I wonder if that was God's protection over me for not being instilled with a lot of tradition that I'd have to work through. Um,
You just got
so
to serve in a way that brought you
yeah,
joy.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
So you guys must have been a growing church,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
To the point where the building that I referred to that you guys have now is beautiful and
Mhm.
fairly new, right? She said
Right.
2012.
Since 2012. Yeah, it was really exciting. We were outgrowing our current building, and we needed to do something, and it was quite a journey to secure this land and to build. They had to jump through a lot of hoops, and to see the building come to fruition was amazing. And that first Sunday, there were so many people, they had to set up extra chairs, and Dan was like, "Man, I think we could have built a bigger building."
Yeah.
And it was pretty good for a while. And then things started going in the tank a little bit, and
And this is the part of the story that I think I know a little bit more of. I appreciate
mhm.
all the other stuff. I thank you so much for sharing, Deb. There's
Yeah,
a lot
my
of stuff
pleasure.
I've learned about you
Yeah,
just in this little bit of time. But yeah, so there ends up becoming, you know, not some conflict, right?
yep,
And which is interestingly enough, I mean, the way I look at it now is like without this conflict, I wouldn't know you.
exactly, I'm so thankful it happened. It was
Right. So
painful,
what was yeah, well, it
painful.
was. So we'd
Yeah,
love to like so what happened at Winneconne Christian Fellowship? There's loads of people coming to church, the brand new building in a beautiful part of Winneconne, Wisconsin.
mhm, yeah,
Everything on the outside looks great. So
yeah,
what happens?
yeah, I think honestly I think there were women who started to take over, and at that point, my husband, um, he's compassion and he didn't wanna hurt anybody's feelings, so he would let women do things, roles and things, and the men weren't serving a whole lot, there were a few, and I don't know what the turning point was for my husband, but he just started not enjoying ministry. It seemed like people were against things that he was saying, and it started to get stressful, and I did not know this, but he had planned on killing himself. Had a plan, had a place, I had no idea, and he ended up going, on a retreat up at Silver Birch Ranch and talked to Dave Wager and said, "Things aren't going well, I'm thinking of leaving," and long story short, he set Dan up with, um, Mike LeMay at the radio station in Green Bay, and I think that was the day John and Jonathan were there, Pastor Jonathan, or at least John, and Dan had started talking to John, and John said, "Hey, what is your definition of a leader?" And Dan said, "I don't know. Or are you, no, let me back up. He said, "Are you a leader or a boss?" And Dan said, "Well, what's your definition of a leader?" And John said, "Oh my God, nobody's ever asked me that." So he gave a definition of a boss is facilitating their own progress, and the leader is facilitating the progress of someone else. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I am definitely a boss." And so from that start of that conversation, John offered to help Dan and help our church get on the bandwagon of what truth really is. So John came every weekend. He sometimes would bring Simon, he would sometimes bring Pastor Jonathan. And, people were just in love with John initially. They were flocking around the table at fellowship time, and John decided it would be a really good idea to start a men's night. And so he did 2 men's night, one on a Monday and one on a Wednesday. Dan was part of the Monday, Jake was part of the Wednesday. So Dan would be gone for hours, and there'd be sometimes he wouldn't get home until midnight, and I'm like, "Where the hell have you been? You haven't," like, "We're early to bed people, where are you?" And he'd come in like dazed, like, "I just had a fire hose put in my mouth. I can't even tell you what I'm learning." And Jake, on the other hand, he's hearing it at his house, and my daughter-in-law's sitting at the door, bedroom door, listening in on this conversation. And then my other son, Ben, was part of men's night. So on Sunday, I would hear them talking about all of this stuff, and I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?"
Right, because you
And
guys, to set the context, you guys would have, like, typically on a Sunday after church, you guys would have a family dinner?
yeah, in the evening, and that was the source of conversation, and I'm hearing all this stuff
Just feeling out of it, huh?
and feeling totally out of it. Well, then all of a sudden somebody got in their head that this was false teaching and Dan's dangerous, and we had a massive church split. Probably, I don't know, 50 to 100 people walked out within a matter of a few weeks, and
Oh,
some of them were my best friends, and that hurt. That
yeah.
really hurt. And I remember just feeling so upset and just saying to
What
God,
was the process like over those couple weeks? Was it like, was there like, did they do their due diligence explaining why they're leaving, or did it just feel
"No,
like the carpet's pulled out from under your feet? Like,
nope, they did not explain. They were here one day and gone the next. One person would say, "I hated how all those people left. I feel terrible." Then he left the following week. Only one couple did the right thing and came to us and said they felt like our church no longer fit their needs. And so they left. And so here we are with this small group of people. Like, what are we doing? And I thought, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to reach out to John and I'm going to ask, "Is there a female in your church?" At least I had the right thing to say. I wanted to talk to a female, and I said, I need some help. I need to understand what my family is learning. I feel really left out." So Laura Lenhart reached out and said, "I would love to mentor you." So we agreed we would meet at a restaurant on a night, and we were both there, not knowing each other were there because we didn't know what each other looked like. I waited a half hour, she waited a half hour, and I got this text, "Well, I guess you had other plans. I'll try to connect with you another time." And I'm like, "No, I'm here. I'm here." And by this time, she was already over the Bunaware Bridge heading to Nina. So she did a UE and came back. And we sat down. And what she didn't realize is I was going to come in like and just dispel everything. Everything
So a
that was
lot of this, just to set, so a lot of this is like John wrote a book called Modeling God,
yes. Yes.
and it at that time was a huge controversy in the area in which we live in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
So a lot of the people left because of John's support, or of
Yeah.
Dan's support of John, right?
Yes. Yes. Thank you
And
for
bringing John
making
in
it
to
clear.
kind
Mhm.
of disciple some guys with Jonathan's help too. So when you say your goal is to dispel, like, I'm going after this
Yeah.
information. Now, one, I will give you credit not only for reaching out to a woman, like that's tact
Yeah.
tactful, right?
Yeah.
But just the fact that you were doing the right thing.
For the wrong reason.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna well, yeah, we can get to that.
Yeah.
That I think is a fun part of your story because the way it turned out. But my point is, how many of these people who left made any effort to learn this information at all, or to reach out to John or John's wife?
Right. It's interesting because I think a lot of the men who are in the men's group really were grasping it and understanding it and would go home and talk to their wives, and their wives would say that's all wrong. And so they would start to listen to their wives. And we
Okay.
know where that goes when men start taking direction totally from their wives.
Yeah, when the husband and husbandry roles
Yes.
get flipped,
Get
that can be
reversed. Yeah.
dangerous. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and you shared yourself, like there was, like, you have experience with that with Dan, you and Dan even. So you could speak to that on your own even. But
Yeah.
so then, okay, so Modeling God
Yeah.
is this big controversy. It's caused a split. Maybe to you, are you even feeling like this damn book made me lose my best friends?
Yes, and I really blame John, and I didn't have nice thoughts about John, and in my mind, I'm like, he's a doofus. He came in and he completely split our church, and, there's a ending story to that too, and I did try to read Modeling God, and I didn't understand it, and I would get so mad, I would throw the book. It just didn't make sense to me, um, and that's then when I reached out to Laura, or reached out to John,
Yeah.
and I got hooked up with Laura.
That's wonderful. So what was that like? So you and Laura
Oh.
have, it's almost like this movie moment in my head of like, just imagining you and Laura sitting at a restaurant, you're both on your phones wondering, where's this woman?
Yes.
And you're like sitting with your backs facing each
Yes,
other, like
yes.
feet away,
Yeah.
only to find out you were both there on time,
Yep.
anxious to meet.
Yeah.
While you're meeting, what was that? What was that like?
I remember the first meeting, she said, "What are you looking for?" And I just said, I wanna learn what our guys are learning." See, I covered up really my motive. And she said, "Well, Music of Life has a discipleship program." So she said, "Would you like to go through that?" And I'm like, "Sure." So at that end of that meeting, I said to her, "You're so nice to come to me, but I think I'd like to come to you, seeing as you're going to be mentoring me, and I'll just come to your house." So I drove to her house.
I
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, good for you,
yeah.
Deb. Yeah.
So I remember it was probably maybe our second or third meeting. Something hit me, and I don't remember why we were talking about this. Oh, I know, it was about definitions. And I said to her, what really bothers me is there's a word in the Bible that says I must hate my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my siblings, whatever.
Yeah.
And how can I hate my mom and dad? I love them. And she said, "Do you know what the definition is?" And I said, "Yeah, it's this emotional feeling. It's this not good feeling." And she goes, "Well, let me show you what the definition is." And she opened up Strong's and she went to the word hate, and it was right in my face, to love less. I'm to love less. And that opened something up. I'm just like, "Oh my God, I think I need to keep going on this and I need to keep learning more and more definitions." And it just like
Yeah.
opened up this dam. And I just had all of this passion flow out like, "Okay, what else don't I know? Tell me more." And I was so hungry. And I literally took everything she gave me and I studied it all week. I would take notes from my notes and I'd write things in red and green and blue to make it
Yeah.
pretty and try to remember. And just like thinking, "Oh my gosh, I am so wrong in all of this." And It sparked something in me 10 years ago that has never gone out. I've got this fire in me that I just wanna keep growing. What's the next thing to do? I keep doing what's brought to me. Anytime Music of Life offers something that's for us, I'm, like, one of the first to sign up. I have to be part of it. Since then, I've gone through Modeling God, book club 3 times. Did it as a participant, then as a leader, and then I was learning to be a leader, and then I was a leader, and each time I go through it, there's more and more stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
that I
Oh,
didn't
I know.
understand.
You are the standard for what it means to be a lifelong learner and somebody who's just hungry for truth.
Yeah,
It's really inspiring. Yeah.
yeah. So I think I met with Laura probably a good 6 months, and I had women at our church saying, "What's going on? You seem different. What are you learning? What are our guys learning?" Well, then all of a sudden they wanted to learn. So I went to Laura, and Laura said, Morgan's wanting to teach this. Would you be willing to start over from the beginning and go through this again? So every week I'd go pick up some women and we'd drive up to the house in Nina and Morgan would teach us. And it was such a fun time in my life. Like, what else don't I know? It's almost like having really bad vision and getting just the right pair of
Oh,
glasses and seeing
yeah.
clear. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that had a vein in the leaf kind of thing. And it's give me more, give me more, give me more.
Yeah, those that initial like learning these really big key concepts for the first time really is like being blind and now being able to
Hmm.
see. Where
Yeah.
now like the journey since then is like I see things clearly, I see things more clearly. It's
Yeah.
usually little microscopic changes now, but
Yeah.
those, it's like you maybe a little bit more poetic of an analogy that you have of like it's like being given glasses compared
Yeah.
to Dan coming home saying, "I feel like somebody shoved a fire hose in my mouth."
Yeah. Right. Opposite spectrums, right?
Yeah, but it
Yeah.
really is like there is this just like awakening when you start understanding the why we're here and how do we get here and what are we supposed to do while we're here, and
Yeah.
you learn not only who God is, but your part in that, and it's
Yeah.
just
I
so no
didn't
wonder
know.
people are like, "What's changed in you?" Right?
Yeah, yes, and then I didn't know I was created with unique gifts in my mother's womb. Everybody is, and I didn't know that, and I was like, "No wonder I couldn't fit in. No wonder I wasn't comfortable in my skin because I was trying to be everything but who God created me to be."
Well, you were taught to emulate other people, right?
Exactly, and you know
Yeah.
what? It's a lot of people do that. I have
Yeah.
said it to my own kids, "Hang out with that person, they're really good, emulate them," whatever, but I took it like black and white, like, okay, emulate them down to what they're wearing.
Right. So there is this, Paul tells us to imitate him
Mhm.
as he imitates Christ. There are behaviors and there are beliefs we ought to, but
Yeah,
Paul's not saying be me, right?
right. I took it physically, like,
Yeah.
"Okay, yeah, I can
And
do
if we
that."
don't, but if we're not given that understanding, how else do we do it? We copy what we see.
Right.
And we can't see those intangible, unique drivers
Yeah,
within us, so we're left
yeah,
with just copying behaviors, and
right.
that can take us off course really
Oh,
quick.
it's exhausting. The money I've
Off the
spent,
image.
the energy I've spent, crying over it that I spent because I just, like, I don't fit in. I don't fit anywhere.
Yeah. So, what's life like now? This
Ugh,
was just like about 10 years ago. You've been
yeah,
on this amazing journey. I love it. You had this really great epiphany of like, I needed somebody to I had this moment of becoming born again, but no one to disciple me.
mhm,
To now you have people discipling you and you're being given opportunities to disciple others.
yeah.
What's life like in Deb Gibson's life today?
So, I think the biggest thing is understanding who God created me to be, and I'm a server giver, and all I want to do is make life better for people. And I could see that even at age 4, there's a newspaper article of me emptying out my piggy bank for a worthy cause. So I saw that way back then. And
Wow.
growing up, I would be told, "Well, you're just doing it to buy somebody's love," and maybe I was because maybe could have been misusing that gift. But to know that I am created to be a server giver and that I don't have to be a perceiver, I don't have to be an exhorter, although I can do that in my server.
Yeah.
But I'm finally have arrived probably. I've often said I'm living my best life. My confidence level is high, my self-esteem is high. There was a time in high school I couldn't even talk in front of a group, and now I'm leading, approved messages, I do communion messages, I do children's messages, I'm mentoring women. I've got younger women reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, God said I should contact you. Would you be willing to meet with me?" And it's like, I could never have done that years ago. I had nothing to offer. Nothing
No,
to
wait,
offer.
didn't you also so Dan's no longer the pastor.
Mhm.
He he stepped up into a different role and Jake took over the church and is now, the shepherd over WCF. When did you become a deacon?
I became a deacon, maybe about 5 years ago, and I sort of enjoyed it, but I started to get this attitude of I have to.
Yeah,
And last summer, not this past summer, but the summer before, Dan was starting to get involved with a church that needed his help, and I wanted to go alongside him. So I asked if I could take the summer off from being a deacon and go with him. And I
to
realized
serve,
that
yeah.
I really enjoyed not being a deacon.
Yeah.
I like to serve, but I don't want to have to be told how to serve and
And
when to
yeah,
serve. And so, yeah,
but that's incredible. I mean, it's still a uniqueness thing, right? It's like
right.
you're gonna serve in other ways, not
Hmm.
maybe deacon work like we call it, but I just thought it was like I remember you becoming a deacon and just being inspired by that because it's like, wait a minute. So this is around the how long is was that after Dan stepped down as pastor? Or like right
No,
around it?
no, it was before. I'm
So
pretty
but not long before though, right? Because
no,
Jake's been
probably.
pastoring for how many years now,
Oh,
right?
that's true. Yeah, you're
But
right.
my point is this, whether it's before or after, it's close where it's like Dan's in his twilight years and now Deb's gonna step up and become a deacon, where it's like to it's inspiring when I start seeing because I see this in Music of Life Church every once in a while too, where somebody who has a lot of life experience, if you will, is
Mhm.
stepping into these roles of serving that typically we see the younger people
Yeah.
stepping into to serve. And because what a deacon, the way we see it, what deacons are doing in the church is their job is to really take care of all the tangible needs in the church,
Mhm.
which is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work that goes unnoticed because, it's the type of work that, you know, you don't want people to notice it for the most part, right?
Right.
I don't want people to have to come up to me and tell me the floor's dirty or it should be clean.
Mhm.
So I was just always impressed by your, capacity and desire to step into all these different leadership. It just really showed me in you, Deb, this woman who is getting more and more energy the
Yeah.
longer she's living out her purpose to where you're able to do more
Yeah.
and serve in greater ways, not lesser ways. It is like the whole retirement plan where I just coast the last however many years of my life just is not that's not the card you're playing, Deb.
Yeah, I
That's
know, and I
incredible.
remember telling Laura, "I just wanna retire," and she said, "What's your plan?" I'm like, "I don't have one, I just wanna be done."
Yeah.
And, when I realized I was going to retire a year early, Dan did a really good job with the help of John to set me up well so I could stick the landing,
Yeah.
on that last day, and I'll never forget your mom surprised me and showed up, to pick me up, and I came outside, and we both, like, did our hands up, like, sticking the landing. It was just so much
Oh,
fun.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much fun. So, yeah, thanks for seeing that in me. I do like serving, um, in some ways.
Yeah.
I'm
Right. And
people
according to
please.
your uniqueness, right?
Right, right.
Same with me. I like
Yeah,
serving too through teaching and
yeah,
coaching
yeah,
and learning
right.
and yeah, we have the capacity to do other things too, but it's like, what are those things that are unique to us that give us energy long term?
Mhm.
We want that for everybody. And if everybody finds that, all the needs will be filled and they'll be filled in a way that everybody's joyful through it too.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned energy. I have so much energy in my life. Sometimes I have a hard time falling asleep because it's like, what's next? What's next? And one of the favorite things Dan and I like to do is have people over. And we
Yep.
have dedicated our house to God, and it's called Asphalia, which means safety in Greek. And we just want people to come in and be loved and realize that even though they've got problems, we're here for them.
Yeah.
And we're starting to get people actually asking us to schedule them in time. Like, "Can we come once a month to see you?" Like, "Yeah, we wanna have you." And, I love to call them the Indiana group, the guys that are at your church. We used to
Oh yeah.
host a lot of them sleeping here, and now
Yeah.
everybody's slowly moving up, and it's like, "Dang, no, we can't have them." And a few weeks ago, Dom arranged a dinner and brought 3 other guys and then Chloe, and we had the amazing time around the table, and
Yeah.
remember talking to Ashley about that the Thursday before, and she said, "Why are all these young kids flocking to you?" I'm like, "I don't know." So I interviewed them all that night and said, "Why do you like to come?" And it all had to do with us being fun, being real, having stories, being safe, feeling cherished when they're here. And even Chloe piped up and said, I felt like this was a safe home the minute I walked in, and like you were my grandparents I never had. So now she's calling me grandma.
Oh, I love that.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
And my son calls Dan Grandpa Dan.
Yeah.
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 Well, you
Yeah. We
guys
get to
filled
love
that
on
role
this
really
here.
well. That I think that was cool that you interviewed him. But yeah, I would agree with all their answers. It's definitely the vibe that you and Dan put out. You're just so not even in not only in your home either, just everywhere I interact with you two, I get that. Just so loving of people,
Thank
and
you.
it's great being around you.
Well,
So
my husband is a master connector, and he always has
yeah.
been, and I've been learning from him, and now I have my own connecting. And I connect every day somehow with somebody, and the connections I have just give me more energy, and that's part of my, personal vision statement is creative connecting, and
Oh,
I
cool.
love it. I have a blast with it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you're an inspiration, Deb. Thank you for being on the show.
Yeah. Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
tagline?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, all this stuff that I learned at one time I thought was bullshit. I
Yep.
really did, and now it's like I cannot speak enough for it. Um, yeah, I wish everybody could find what I have. It's there, you just have to ask and take it. It's free.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is free. You
Yeah.
just need to do the work to get it.
That's one wonderful encouragement. I remember hearing you say that for the first time to John, and he laughed and was like, "Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great."
Oh, yeah. Can I share a
Right.
story on about John?
Yeah.
So I was going through a book club. That big thick book with Ayn Rand? What's it called?
Oh, yeah, Atlas Shrugged. Yep.
Atlas Shrugged. And there was a time towards the end. There was a question when you're visiting the houses, and it said
Mhm.
something about what is one thing that you were not happy it happened, but are glad it happened
Yeah.
now. And I realized I needed to confess and repent to John. So I wrote out a story for him and I said, I was so wrong 10 years ago to blame you. You're just a man who was trying to bring truth. And I was wrong. I was so mean and so wrong. And so I did, full confession and repentance. And I said, what can I do to make this up to you? And he wrote back and he said, you've done it.
Yeah. Yep. That's incredible,
Yeah.
and I've seen you keep doing you what I've described you as is first a skeptic, now a
Oh,
supporter.
yeah. Total skeptic.
One of the
Total.
greatest supporters to it, like you said, I mean, if part of the damage is speaking against or poorly about John, you've spoken so much more positively about him
Hmm.
since becoming a supporter and, uh, and helping people learn the truth too. It's like that,
Yeah.
and that's what I know what I want, and I know what John I could speak for him and what he would want too is take what you've learned and help other people with it.
Yeah.
Best
Yes.
thing you can do.
I love to refer to it as a ripple effect. You
Oh, I
throw a
like that.
stone in and it ripples out. That's what I want for
Yeah.
me and for who's ever learning this. Plus, I owe you guys so much. You came at a time in my life where it was rough,
Yeah.
and we owe so much to you guys.
And we do it to you and Dan and to WCF because you guys came in our life at a difficult time
Mhm.
of for what our community was going through at the time. And it was a blessing to have another community accept us with open arms and
Mm.
actually want to learn
Yeah.
what we have to say. So
Yeah, well, we feel like a lot of you are our kids, so we feel like you're a son of
yeah.
ours, so maybe we
Yeah,
ought to
I
put you
feel
on our
that too.
Christmas list.
I feel that too. Thank you so much, Deb.
You're
This was
Yeah,
incredible. Keep up the great work. And yeah,
thanks.
we'll definitely have to have you on again sometime soon. And because I know there's a lot more we could talk about. And for sure, I need to come and hang out with you and Dan at your
Yeah,
house again.
you and Hannah gotta set a
Yeah.
date, so
Oh, for
thanks for
sure.
interviewing me, I owe you, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds good. Bye bye.
Thanks, bye.
All right. Thank you once again to Deb Gibson for being on the show. What a lovely story. What an inspiring guest and an inspiring life. To have this life that keeps getting better the longer she lives it is something I think we'd all want. One of the things that I thought was really great, though, is how she described her early life and her childhood being in what would be deemed as like safe and secure and, well, given to, not wanting for nothing, but still being insecure, low self esteem, and in fear a lot. And, on one hand, it's like it really helped me see how faith in her life in her later years, what was really the dissolve, the answer to that fear. Now, there was still stuff she had to walk through in building that faith to overcome that fear, but that really is like the answer, right? Because fear is what? Some dread about the future, right? Something bad's gonna happen that has yet to happen. Something maybe I can't even see. Where faith is the opposite of that. Faith is the belief in something that hasn't happened yet. Faith is this positive. Fear can be seen as like a lot of times as like negative faith, right? I'm believing something that hasn't happened yet. That's bad, something bad that's going to happen. Well, faith is what's meant to instruct us to have hope about the future. So that's one of the keys to really the benefits of understanding faith being a belief in something that you can't see, either because it's invisible or it's yet to happen, and that it's built through understanding and experience. It gives us the tool and the understanding we need to build our faith on purpose, our faith in God, our faith in who He created us to be, our faith in how that all operates together, how to live out our purpose. Isn't that the key to not being fearful is to have faith? Not to mention love, perfect love casts out all fear. And it does take faith to love because love is giving a value without expecting anything in return from the person to whom you gave. I need faith in order to love or else it'd be immoral for God to say you have to give without expecting if God wasn't also going to reward us in the long term for what we gave. That all takes faith. It takes faith to love. And faith is going to be the key to removing our fear. When she's this kid, though, she is operating according to who God created her to be. Most kids are. Like we see kids playing, they're flowing, they're having fun, they're in their uniqueness unapologetically. But there's some moment in our lives. For Deb, it was around 10. For a lot of us, it's around between 10 and 12, where all of a sudden something happens and we recognize or we're told not to be different, or we're told how we're different is disrupting and making people uncomfortable. So my friend Jonathan likens it to like we are all butterflies as kids, right? And what we do at some point is we socialize ourselves and we take like a big cape and wrap it around our wings and we don't fly according to our uniqueness. It's like, let's get back into the cocoon. It's like, we're not supposed to do that. So I love how Deb was able to see how really the key to her living out her purpose as an adult is going back to who she was before that moment of fear and insecurity and dread that hit her at 10 years old. Now, the other thing that she was taught was to emulate others. And I get that, right? And I even mentioned in the episode, Paul tells us to imitate him. But what he's telling us to imitate is how he takes direction from God and how he follows Christ. And the thing is, how I follow Christ, how you follow Christ, how Deb follows Christ, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is different. God's speaking to all of us, but God's not telling me to do the same thing he's telling you to do, and vice versa. So Paul's not saying do what I do. He's saying imitate me as I imitate Christ, as I have the mind of Christ, as I empty myself and allow the Holy Spirit to work through me. It really makes me think of this fake it till you make it mindset, right? Why don't you just copy that person? Just emulate that person. Just do what they're doing. Is this fake it till you make it? Just go and do the best you can. Fake it if you have to. Eventually things will get better. But what does this fake it till you make it mindset get? What does it actually lead to? I mean, it really, even if it helps us prevent some of the bad behaviors we were doing, like if I emulate somebody who's has good behaviors, great. Maybe it'll, for a time, stop me from being destructive. Just like this fake it till you make it, like fake it like you have it together and eventually you will. Like maybe that will stop me from making some poor decisions. But eventually I need the truth of who I am. The till you make it won't happen unless I understand who God created me to be and how to effectively operate according to who that is. Now, so I'm going to argue for emulating others here for a minute, because there's leaders and mentors that I have and have had in the past that I for sure would think, hey, what would John do in this situation? What would Jonathan do in this situation? What would my mom do? What would my dad do? What would Ryan do, etc.? That's great. That can be really helpful, especially as a novice, especially when I'm just learning something new in life in general or in a specific area. I liken it to, I played Oregon Trail as a kid. Remember in elementary school, back when the floppy disks were still floppy. And we'd play this computer game. And it was all about getting from, Wisconsin, wherever we were in the game, to Oregon, following the Oregon Trail. And you followed other wagons, right? And this concept, I think of this concept of traveling out west. And imagine being in a covered wagon with your family, with everything you own, traveling through the wilderness, and you saw wagon tracks in the ground. I imagine you'd feel really safe. Like, okay, we're going the right direction. Let's stay on this path because other people have driven this path before us. We're safe on this path. And there is safety in that. And that's wonderful. But eventually, you can't all end up in the same place. Eventually, you're going to have to chart your own territory. You're going to have to chart your own course. And that's really what it means to find your own uniqueness and to learn how to effectively live that out. And we saw Deb do that. We saw in her story and heard in her story, there was, she learned from Laura. And there were times where Laura's teaching her things where I'm sure Deb is, following the wagon trail that Laura was kind of charting for her. But eventually, Deb became a leader in her own right. She had to chart her own course and go her own path and live out her own purpose. She isn't a joyful woman and a woman who's taking direction from God and leading other people because she's still copying other people. She has found who she is and she's living that out. One of the things that's wonderful about Dan and Deb, and I hope you saw it through Deb's story, is how safe and loving they are as people. They create an environment wherever they are, but especially in their home, that fosters growth. No one grows if they don't feel safe. And Dan and Deb know how to help people feel safe and foster that growth. So who are you drawing on for safety and love? Who are you providing safety and love for? That's it for today on Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Sukowski. You can find Deb on social media, on Facebook. And also, feel free to go to Winneconne Christian Fellowship's website, wcfsite.org, if you want to learn more about the safe and loving community that is WCF, the church that her and her husband are a part of and really helped found. So thank you for listening. Keep seeking truth. Keep living it out. We'll see you next time.